All right, this man needs no introduction. He is the Benjamin Button of S&C. Zach Higginbotham, what's up, bro?
What's up, man?
As Fernando said off air, we were literally hanging out 2 days ago, so we're probably retreading most of the ground that we talked about over the weekend.
More than likely.
Fuck it. I think a cleaned up version should be shared with the people.
Why not?
The raw version is probably going to get my visa status revoked and get you fired. But anyway, right. For those who have not heard of you, where do you work? What do you do?
I am an assistant strength conditioning coach for University of Mississippi, also known as Ole Miss. I work with football. I am our de facto rehab coordinator and sports science coordinator. I'm the quote-unquote nerd of the staff, as I'm often referred to here. So let's go with that.
You're the iron fist inside the velvet glove. Did you? Was it that you turned up to Ole Miss and then you just evolved into being the RTP, or was it like a conscious decision where, hey, like we need someone to handle this?
No. So when they reached out to me and they were looking for somebody to fill their open position, this was something they were looking for, and this was something like their sports medicine department had previously on other staffs and coaching staffs, that they kind of knew there was a gap within their departments that they knew they needed to fill, and it was just I suppose my name kept coming up for whether it was at the bottom of the list, nobody else wanted it, or if I was actually halfway decent in my job, my name kept coming up one way or another. So here I am.
I mean, my feeling is that most strength coaches just kind of fall into that. Like you learn how to put those fires out because there are fires in the first place, and it's just like how I got good. Or no, let me rephrase. How I got better at rehabbing hamstrings was I fucked up, and there were a lot of hamstrings. So how did you start on that? Because I remember we spoke when you were at CSU. You were doing it way back then.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing it all the way back when I was like an intern. I was like the quote unquote like injured kid babysitter, and it evolved into like an actual like rehab role. So I guess, yeah, it turned into, hey, you're not busy or you have less guys to train. You go handle these guys and kind of just, keep them busy and don't cause too much noise, and, keep everybody else out of harm's way. And that's kind of what it turned into. And it evolved more into where it actually became like a pathway and something I was halfway interested in. And now it's kind of turned into like a actual quote unquote role for me and everywhere I've been. And it's something I like and I enjoy, especially in places where I've been an assistant, and it gives me autonomy and gives me a chance to be the stubborn person that I am and kind of do my own thing at times and problem solve. And yeah, I definitely agree. It's in terms of like putting out fires, and I won't say one thing bad, good, or indifferent towards any other place, but every place kind of has its good and bad and indifferent and ugly, so to speak. And you learn to deal with those different issues. Like I've been at places where, for whatever reason, like it was hamstring or us, it was hamstrings by the bulk. I've been at places where the school I was at recently, not the last school, but the school I was at recently, I won't say where, but where for whatever reason we had tons of Jones fractures and Liz Franks and ankle syndesmosis and things like that. For whatever reason, it was with a lot of lower limb, ankle, foot issues. I've been places where I feel like I'm halfway competent with like low backs now, because I've been in places where we had a ton of lumbar discectomies and things like that. So it also kind of works out to where, for me, is negative as somebody can spin it on my resume, where I've been a lot of places. I've also, for me, it's a positive, or at least I view it as a positive, because I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen the proverbial cat skinned a lot of different ways, and I've been able to kind of pick and choose and see things I like and I don't like, and it kind of helps me build my mental models, I guess, so to speak. So kind of gives me a lot of different varying information to pull from.
I know for a fact that that's actually been quantified in pro soccer, that there are patterns of injuries that follow head coaches around from team to team. As they move on, the injuries blip up. And, I've experienced it anecdotally, like at Wasps, we had 4 or 5 Achilles in literally the whole time I was there, which is 3 years. And I don't think I've seen one since. And William and Mary was shoulders and groins. Toshiba, my own fault, hamstrings. We had 2 groin issues there as well. And it's, like you said, it's like you're not gonna you're not going to be able to quickly orient yourself in those situations unless you've experienced them many times before and figured out what works and what doesn't work. If you're just going off research and advice from other people, you're going to probably make a lot of errors along the way, right?
No, I agree completely. I mean, for me, it's damn near everywhere I've been, it's, I feel like I have a good grasp on something. And then here recently, the last couple of years, it's been confiding in you and others where, I realized 2 months in, 60 days in, I don't got it all figured out. And I'm trying to figure out whether I'm going to have a job at the end of the year. So yeah, no, it definitely is like helps me speed up the process and also learn trial by error. And there's definitely times where looking back on, what, I probably didn't handle that right, or I probably didn't push them hard enough as I did, or, maybe I did this right, or let me go back and look at this program for a similar injury, similar situation. What did I like? What went well? What didn't go well? Let me try to fill in the gaps here. And then I definitely agree with that. And in terms of like football, there's definitely, with the amount of time I've spent like college football, there's definitely trends or like markers of like certain, everybody refers to as like coaching trees. I've been enough places to see that there's certain kind of injuries that follow like certain styles of training or coaching trees, or like even like certain like conferences, just where that conference of the like conference style of play is viewed. Because even like here at Ole Miss, just traditionally over like the last 3 to 4 years, there's been kind of some patterns of like different issues we've seen and things like that. Just trying to wrap our head around and figure out what it is, because some of it I haven't seen. So,
I mean, the reputation is that SEC football is like by far the most attritional of the conferences, right?
From what I've seen, yeah. By and large, the whole scale, when you're looking at the conference as a whole, I would say so. I'm not going to sit here and like point a finger and say why that is. I have kind of my own like beliefs and reasons on why that is as a whole, good, bad, or indifferent.
Recruitment?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think the style of play definitely helps or hurts at times. Obviously, the more physical the practice is, obviously, like we all three know, the body isn't meant to be in the equivalent of a car crash with a Prius anywhere from 50 to 90 times a day, let alone 3-4 times a week. So things like that, the volume of practice, like load management's a big thing. And like, I know that's a big key term, and tactical periodization is all that big stuff. But in order to get good at football, you got to play your sport. So, and, some coaches take that overboard, and the time on feet, time and duration of practice sessions, it all plays into it. And other conferences where, where your rosters may not be as deep. So going to get your scout team, that you may be playing, I'll use Akron as an example. Like Akron and Alabama are two very different schools. The scout teams that they have are probably very, very different what they're going against. At Alabama, you're going against probably a first round pick at guard on the scout team, versus Akron. Their walk-ons are probably kids that played at the local high school in Youngstown, and they're just kind of hoping they don't get cut at the end of the season. And I don't want to say anything bad because about them specifically, but like every school's like that. So it just is what it is.
Talk to me about your playing career, because you initially started out at Cincinnati, you ended up at Marshall. Those are two, fairly big name schools. What were you like as a high school athlete? Were you like a star athlete, or?
Star athlete is very.
Were you heavily recruited coming out of high school?
That means yes.
I was recruited. I wasn't heavily recruited. Like if I was coming out of high school, nobody know who I was except for maybe some people in the city and maybe around the state. I was all state 3-4 times. I was.
Who'd you get offered by?
As a player, like I had some small schools. I had like some MAC schools, so that'd be like Ball State, Miami, Ohio, Akron, things like that. I had like some small, like I had some other like group of five, small power fives like Cincinnati, things like that. I looked at like some Ivy Leagues. I looked at Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Cornell, some other stuff like that. So I was a good player, but I was very much an overachiever. I played for a good high school program, went to a good school, played in a good conference, and I was productive. And to be very honest, like I played high school football at Ohio. So high school football at Ohio is very well known as there's good players, good football, but a lot of those kids have reached their ceiling or closer to their ceiling, so to speak, because the actual like skill development within the high school coaching ranks there is much better versus like everybody talks about like Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, some of these other
raw talent.
Yeah, just because and like Florida, like South Florida specifically, to where some of like the actual skill development that's available to these kids is so few far in between in terms of quality that these kids are just freaky. And then if they get around the right coach that's able to develop them, there is no limit to what they can be. So I was definitely not that. And then I got to college my freshman year. I tried to do the whole thing. I had 2 surgeries my freshman year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had two knee surgeries my freshman year. My roommate was killed in a car accident that we grew up together. So that was like a tough time for me. And I was quote unquote going to like my dream school. I was in front of my like quote unquote one of my hometowns. I went to high school there. A lot of my family was there. My family could come watch me play whenever I wanted. Top 25 program. And, it just didn't work out.
I remember we talked about how you just felt at the end of that year that you needed a complete fresh start, right?
Mm-hmm. And then for me, so when I got to it, regardless of what was going to happen, I wasn't unhappy there. I wasn't mad. I wasn't frustrated. I needed to get away. I needed to get away from everything that kind of followed me. Even then, like being the hometown kid for me, it was like, there was another thing where like as a player, like I felt like I was in fucking high school every day, even though I went to school with like 40, 50,000 people. Like I was still seeing people like I saw as like a freshman when I was like 14. I'm 27 now. There's people I knew when I was 22 I don't talk to that I don't like. So, I mean, it is what it is. They don't like me either probably. But so like I just needed a fresh start. And then same thing. I was very much an overachiever, beat up. I was the kid that was always in return to play, several surgeries. So something always wrong with me. And by that point, I lost my confidence. Athletic skill was dwindling. I was an overachiever to begin with. And
did you ever have any as a coach, every kid's going to the league. Even at William & Mary, every kid's going to the league. Were you ever of the mindset that you were going to be a professional athlete, or were you quite realistic with yourself?
I probably had that mindset till probably about halfway through my freshman year when you're like, you know what? I'm 5'11". I'm white. I'm 220.
Yeah.
That's when you realized?
Yeah, when you're in high school, like it's everybody's you're in school, everybody's
what summed it up is I met Tremaine Edmonds last January, and you and he were the same position, and he was 6'5", 260 and ran a 4.5.
I'll never I'll say now that I think about it. Now once I remembered it happened, I'll never forget. I remember like some of these, like one of these like recruiting websites or blog websites for Cincinnati football was like writing up like a linebacker report for all the incoming linebackers on the team. And I think I was like one of 2 white. It was like me and actually another kid that went to my high school. We were both playing. We were like the only 2 white kids playing linebacker. Not that it's a big deal or whatever. And then, but since I was the youngest guy, I think I was the shortest guy in the room. I think I was also one of the I was a freshman, so it's not that big of a deal. Like I think I ended up coming in at like 205.
Yeah.
And the blog post referred to me as the Rudy of the linebacker unit, and I was just like Jesus Christ, I can't live this down. So and at that point, like I kind of knew, like I just wanted to like play in front of my friend, like be one of the boys, play as much as I could, enjoy my time, and I think by like my sophomore, I think probably about halfway through my sophomore year, I knew full on I was going to coach in some capacity, or I was going to just go get a job at some capacity. Like
quite rare though, to come to that realization or to make that decision so early, and then to actually still be coaching as you were an athlete.
Yeah, so like I knew pretty early. I knew pretty early on. I knew, like I said, once I knew that, I was interested in like strength conditioning. I was interested, like I was pre-med, and I ended up changing my degree, all that sort of stuff. But I started interning towards the back end of my sophomore year. So I interned, like was a unpaid intern for like my back half of my college career while I was still trying to play, do all that sort of stuff. And then it kind of worked out to where as soon as I graduated, because of that, I kind of fell right into jobs. Next thing you know, like I'm like relatively young, compared to everybody else at kind of the same position as me. So, I mean, looking back on it, I'm kind of happy I did, even though it sucked. It kind of expedited my process, so to speak. So I'm not mad about it at all.
Do you feel like having that experience as a player, having that athlete and coach network around you was pretty pivotal in getting you to Ohio State so early on? Like, you know, to be winning a national championship as an intern is like pretty kissed on the cock.
Well, luckily that wasn't me. I was just happy to be at a good program that I was actually still playing at that point. If you're referring to Ohio State, I was still playing at that point.
Oh, you were? Okay.
I was still playing. I was not there.
When were you there? 15 or 16?
I was there through the back end of 16 through 17.
They won at 14. My bad. Yeah.
Won at 14. So, yeah, I was a junior. Yeah, I was a sophomore, junior that year. So, yeah. But no, it definitely. I wouldn't say in terms of like lessons, like that like help me as a coach. Like now, I think if anything, it gives me some form of like validity when I talk to kids. I think now not so much because I'm getting to the point now to where like, come on, like you barely look like you played high school football. You know, as you more.
Wait till you have an accent and weigh 180.
Yeah. But, you know, in terms of, I would definitely say where I played, who I played for, and who I worked for like early on definitely helped expedite my process early on because I played and worked for a successful program that was linked to other successful programs and things like that. And being associated with some of these different people really helped. Most definitely. And even now, like when I mentioned, I try not to use it as like name dropping, but when I bring up some of these places I've been or situations or different things I've seen or been a part of, it's like, especially like coaches, when I can sit there and say, oh, I worked for Urban Meyer or I worked in his line of tree or whatever, like for say of what I know he's getting ripped by the Jaguars right now, but for whatever reason, like with football coaches, that's like them, I guess now Dabo Swinney, like Urban or Nick Saban, like there's just like those 3 or 4 names, like you say their name and you get instant credibility. Whether just whatever the association is with it, intern, graduate assistant, player.
You say
so,
like,
yeah, absolutely.
Would you say it like clears the path for you a little bit? Like it buys you a bit of a window. What do you know, you mentioned Ohio State, like Mickey Murray, one of the highest paid strength coaches in the world, probably. What do you take from a guy like that?
You know, when I worked for him and I was there, it was definitely, looking back on it, was definitely his ability to facilitate the daily operations of an entire organization as a strength coach, to where looking back on it, maybe 20% of his job was actually being a strength coach. And it was really impressive to see, because when he did do that, for whatever his bandwidth of as a coach and his philosophy and his principles, he was very aligned with what he was, who he was, what he wasn't, what he was going to do. And I respect that. He was so ingrained. It was so easy to him. It let him broaden his network of, like, I don't want to call it a high performance manager because it's not really what it was. But I mean, he was in a day-to-day, the acting borderline CFO of a top 5 organization in college football. Just literally everybody almost adhered to what his plan of execution was. Now, obviously, he was operating under 1 or 2 people, but I mean, the program stopped and started with him. I mean, at any point in time, no matter whether it was nutrition, academics, compliance, football, whatever it was, he knew the pulse of that sub-department within the entire organization and knew and understood how to get everybody aligned in one unison direction, which was impressive. And then in terms of the kids and things like that, and how he managed the locker room and managed like different personalities, all these different pieces. Now he's got his own personality. It's awesome to deal with. But even then, like looking back on it, it's just really impressive how he's able to manage all that on a year in, year out basis. Because it was a really hard program to be a part of. It was very demanding. I think looking back, I think Will Muschamp made a quote about when he left Alabama. I forget where. I think it might have been to South Carolina. He left Alabama to go to I think it was South Carolina. He mentions like working for Nick Saban was like it was 4th and goal for the national championship every day, and like wore him out. Now I could. Now looking back on it, after different places I've been, I've never been I've been under some pressure and I've been under some scrutiny in other places I've been, but in terms of like college football, I've never been under that much daily scrutiny or like potential development on a day in, day out basis. And it may not have been like X's and O's in terms of where I was learning vertical integration, all these different things that like for me were foundational pieces. Now I wasn't getting that there. But what I was getting were how's an elite organization operate? How does a elite culture operate? How are all these different people managing all these different pieces? And once you kind of see it, and you're talking about being kissed on the cock, where to me that's where that was my moment of seeing that, because everywhere else I've been after that was second to last, because there's nothing that's come close to it. So
some people teach you by showing you how it's not to be done.
Yeah, exactly. There's been places where I've learned just as much in the opposite direction as I learned there. So, which is good, but it's frustrating to go through. But at the same time, like everything else you're kind of working with or towards is it's like kind of that dream girlfriend you have. You piss it away. Like everything's now being compared to that situation. And if it's not even close, and it's piss poor. So it's a blessing and a curse, but it also just gives you, especially in this arena, gives you a certain standard of how things should look. And especially when the goal is to win a national championship or win a world championship, whatever it is, or rugby cup or whatever the hell it is.
The rugby cup. Hey,
the
let me ask you a
rugby
question.
cup.
How, football is just full of these instances or examples of exactly what you went through, which is you've got the stuff, you've been party to a very, very successful program. And there are so many people that when they move on to the next job like you did, all they do is cut, paste, change the logo, and then put out the program as is. And knowing what I know about programs where you've worked and what you're like, was it a concerted effort to avoid doing that and be your own man and test your own ideas out? Or is that just how you work? Because you could very easily fall into the trap of not being, inward looking and contemplative about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. In terms of like me, I think I will say this, when I left, granted it wasn't like fired or anything like that. It's just, like the ceiling of where I was at, it is what it is. I wasn't going to move up there. People like, you don't leave that job unless you're going to leave to be a head guy or be a head coach or whatever it is. So I left to grow myself, and my opportunities came up and things like that. And then once you do, like, looking back on it, was almost for me when I was there, and I was almost I think what allowed me to not cut copy paste was, again, like we've talked about before, like I'm a dickhead in my own right. I'm stubborn. I question everything. I'm a smart ass. So, and I understand all that. So even when I was there, so, well, why do we do this? Why do we do that? That doesn't make sense, but they didn't do this and that. It's where it's like, you know what? The response was just shut up and do it, because we've won. Like we've won, or that's always operated this way. And that's how it is in any major organization. So with that being said, where that's kind of how I've always been everywhere I've been. It's how I've been as a person, which I think allows me to, like I said, it's a blessing and a curse with it, but it allows me to see different things or look at a situation without just, oh, this is how we're going to do it. Cool. Let me fall in line and just go ahead and do it. To where, again, because I'm a dickhead by nature, I'm going to question everything to begin with. So, sometimes it makes me a bad assistant or whatever you want to call it at times, but it also, I try to always bring something to the table. Or with that being said, it always allows me to kind of push and learn and figure things out on my own, because I do value myself as being a self-starter, intrinsically thinking, and all these different other pieces that because I am the way I am, it allows me to do these other pieces, the things that come back to the table, if that makes sense.
Well, it depends really on the culture you're immersed in, right? So if you are the same dude everywhere, and in some places you don't know how to work with others, and in others you bring something to the table, then maybe you're just the wrong place, but you're doing the right things, staying true to yourself. I mean, I had some of that as well, so I can empathize with that.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, for me, it comes down to, it's like, if nothing else, would you rather have me next to you as a teammate or in front of you as an opponent? And if the answer is you'd rather have me next to you, cool. We can keep moving that direction. Everything else can be overcome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even for me, it's never out of a place out of spite or anything like that. It's just more so of what's it going to take to drive performance. Because at the end of the day, I think since we're on the topic of football, like Georgia Southern's head coach was getting ripped on in an interview the other day about their 1-2 start. And he's like, look, the bottom line is that this is entertainment business. Much as we want to say they're amateur athletes, like if we don't win, I get fired. This is entertainment business. And if I'm not pushing performance or giving you a good product, you deserve to be unhappy. And that's why I'm going to get fired. So I got to do everything to figure out how to do my job. So, and like for me, the reality is if you do your job and you're able to drive performance, I don't care if you're black, white, purple, asshole, nice as can be, or Mormon. I don't care either. None of the difference. Do you do your job well? To me, that's what matters.
Winners are grinners. One other thing that we talked about in the car on the way to the airport the other day, I never realized just what a pay cut you took to, was it ULM you left or Nevada?
I love both.
But at one point you took a 50% pay cut, right?
ULM.
Yeah. Is it just that you don't mind poverty, or you're that hungry for certain steps in your career, or you just always had this vision of like what it is you're working towards? Do you have an ultimate goal in mind for your career?
I think the goal's been, it's kind of transitioned to in a bit of a moving target, so to speak. I think for me, it's just I've always kind of known what I wanted to do as a professional in terms of like what I value, and I think that's been kind of like my guiding, like my north star, so to speak. Where if I can figure out pretty quickly if I'm in a place where if like my north star doesn't align in the galaxy, so to speak, of where we're at, then I'm going to fall out of it pretty quick. Because I'm just frankly like I have dickhead tendencies, and if it doesn't line up, then I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to fight for it, and it's going to be one of those two things. We've talked about one of the days. You realize your time at a place is finite because you outgrow the place, or you realize the ceiling on the place of what you're trying to do makes you have to be the bad guy, because you're trying to push and do these different things. So I can see that some different places. Just like I remember when I was at ULM, my boss flat out told me, "Don't get stuck here. If I had the same opportunity to leave, I would if I was you." And this was the same moment he offered me another pay raise and another job opportunity to move up in the end of the department. And I still said no. I'm going to go take.
Same with Scott, bro. We pushed Scott out the door.
And you know what? And the funny thing is here, Fernando, I know you're not familiar with Louisiana, but absolutely, I'm from West Virginia, so it was a warmer version of where I grew up. So I loved it. It was, I was happy to be there. I was happy with my quality of life. My work-life balance was awesome. But at the same time, like I was, and I'm still, me and Kira were just talking about this earlier today, I think, but it's kind of just about, in terms of like, for me, it's just putting pieces together to the puzzle, like trying to learn and try to figure out how to like actually drive performance and like be in the best situation. So for me, when I left ULM, I was leaving to what I thought was going to be a professional situation that was going to catapult me into another stratosphere of learning and development, or even to take a one step back, to take 10 steps forward professionally in terms of whether it be a head job, performance manager, things like that. So that
I think you have to take stock of where you are now at 27. There's not a lot of
people.
Yeah. So
I mean, yeah. So for example, like when I left ULM and I went to CSU, I went to the job knowing when I left to go to Colorado State, I knew damn good and well that there was probably 80% chance I was going to get fired at the end of the year. I knew, and we ultimately, like, our football staff did get fired. But from a performance side of things, the guy I worked for, the staff we did some good things within like the college football setting, and there was I did learn. I learned a lot actually, and I saw some different things, and it was a good experience, and I was glad I did it. And again, I was willing to deal with the poverty. I remember when I left Louisiana, I sold my couches, I sold my bed because I was broke from the previous move because Louisiana Monroe was broke. So they didn't pay for my moving expenses, so I was all out of my own pocket. And then I was about to move again, and I hadn't recouped at that point. So you know what? I recouped it my own damn self. I sold as much as I could, packed only what fit in my truck. I drove to Colorado, and I slept on an air mattress for 8-9 months, knowing I was going to get fired.
just to follow, you mentioned that we spoke offline via text today, and one of the things that I said to you in that conversation is just reflecting for myself is like how you do the work has to change as you get older and as you rise up, because I think you're starting to get to that point in your career where when you're an intern, you can like you can be the Red Bull type of worker where it's just like hanging on by the seat of your pants, work. But when you're an intern, you can almost leave the work at the door a little bit more and switch off. Whereas the longer you get into this job, the more you're taking work home with you. You're always thinking about it, and you almost can't get away with working in that style. And I went to jiu-jitsu at 1 p.m. To me, it reminded me like when you're a white belt, to hit a certain move requires all the energy and attention you have. But by the time you start rising up those belts and you've been doing it a certain number of years, you can get the same outcome for less effort and being chill and being efficient. And I think it's like one of those things from our conversation, you're kind of at that stage now where you're finding out that you need to get the same output for less effort just to make it more sustainable and allow yourself to focus on other things.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know I've had some variations of this conversation with you over probably the last 2 years or so.
Not that I'm an expert. I mean, fucking hell.
No.
You're getting a haircut from the barber that's bald.
Oh my Lord. I mean, I think even though Kier's probably seen the mid to late stages of my hairline loss the last 2.5 years.
Hey, you were at my house when you officially gave it up, remember?
Yeah, I was. I remember Nick DeMarco is the one who pushed me off the cliff. The hair suicide. He's an accomplice to that. So
let me sorry, go on. Yeah.
But no, definitely. Just like I know, like I was talking to you over the last 2 years, I know the last 2.5 years about the similar concept of being at places, whether it's frustrating or mad or whatever it is. So where you're bringing work home and it's just getting piled on top of you. And just like here recently, I know for me professionally, it's hard. As much as I know I need to, like, I can sit there and I get home and I know like I can think of like a laundry list of a million things I need to work on. I try to start working on a little bit while I'm at home because I don't have a wife, I don't have kids, whatever. I got a dog, and just the motivation to do it quickly evaporates unless it's like an immediate, like I got to get this done for like the next day or two. To where now it's kind of, you know what? Once I'm at home, fuck it, I'll deal with it tomorrow.
The work never goes away. It never goes away. So it's like you just have to find that sweet spot of you feel like you're checking stuff off and you get that satisfaction and you're removing stress, but you can never kid yourself that the work's going to run out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just like I know other places I've been where, I was able to kind of burn the midnight oil a little bit, so to speak, over the last couple of years where I was motivated to get out or get a better job or get higher pay or do a certain thing here and there. So I was able to kind of burn the midnight oil, work on side projects or side gigs or push a little harder on some things for work. To now it's kind of, there's days I got it, there's days I don't. So I do recognize that. I know there's one thing I forget when it was you originally told me that there's always going to be a to-do list. I know you mentioned that to me on the phone a couple of years ago, and that's something that always kind of sticks with me. Like there's always going to be a to-do list, no matter how much I get done. There's always going to be a to-do list, and if I cross off 80% of what's on the list, I'm just gonna find more shit to add to it. The list is going to be the same like as soon as I get done.
Well, someone's going to wander into the gym, wander into your office, and fill it for you. Mm-hmm. That's why I used to train at the Rec. When I was at William & Mary, I trained at the Rec just because people would leave me the fuck alone. Let me ask you a question about being a player. So I feel like being a high-level player gives you insights that might not be possible to have as a coach or to be a low-level athlete. Are there some things that, try as you might, as a coach to say, well, this is irrational or it doesn't work, that you just know as a player it does work and that you've made an effort to incorporate into your work?
Now you're using this term of high level player very loosely.
Stop it. Was it 3% of all high school players get through to the Division I level? You're in the top 3%.
So with that being said, I don't know if there's anything where like the game slows down speech or anything like that, because I wasn't like that. I think for me more so it's more, I would say, yeah, I think kind of it's the idea. I think being more empathetic with your players and understanding like, okay, is this kid actually an asshole, or do I need to actually take a step back and listen? Because there's times like I'll tell you right now, every time I take a new job, the first like 60 days I'm there, like every kid in the building fucking hates me because I'm an asshole. I'm a flaming asshole for the first 2 months. I'm sarcastic, I'm loud, I'm combative, I'm aggressive, but and they're like, oh, like, and they'll start complaining. But as soon as they realize when I put my foot down, like I fucking mean it, I'm able to relax and I talk to them the same way I talk to y'all. It's very much a casual conversation. I'm able to get by and things like that. And I'm like everywhere I've been like right on cue. It's like, hey, remember when you used to think I was an asshole? Like now I'm just a sarcastic asshole. Like now you just don't get my sense of humor. So I think for me, now before getting back to the original thought, I think more so for me, it's just having conversation with players, realizing the same way like we do as people, as coaches, like they don't have it every day. Same way like we don't have it every day. In college football, like right now, like readiness testing or auto reg training, like as much as people say they use VBT and shit, does not exist. Everything is descriptive. Not like very rarely is anything like training prescriptive. It's all descriptive post. So that being said, that's one thing I try to like rely on, that knowing that, again, so we talk about there's always going to be a laundry list of shit to get done and as a program manager, as a coach, whatever it is. Same thing with training. Like most of these kids, like unless it's like speed work, even like that, like, but when it comes to like the weight room, so to speak, like what do we do more than anything? Lift weights. Like we're going to squat again. We're going to pull again. We're going to do something like, so if you don't got it today, it is what it is. Your turf toes bugging you, I give 2 shits. Let's go train. We'll figure something out. Like, so I think that's something I try to rely on heavily with players. It gets me a lot of buy-in with kids. And like, I don't want to say like some people I say I'm being soft. I'll just realize like at the end of the day, like I'd rather these kids feel good for practice, for games, and try to get more out of them in the fucking weight room, especially in season.
Do you think that's refreshing for some athletes in football? Because obviously, I've seen programs where it's like fucking North Korea, like you must be cheering and clapping and making noise before you're allowed in the weight room. But I remember reading a base building by Paul Carter, and this is a big, strong dude that lifts heavy weights, and he said, you just have to accept the fact that 80% of your sessions are going to be somewhere in the middle. Some of them are going to be 10% is going to be you're feeling like a dog with 2 cocks, and the other 10% is you're going to feel absolutely miserable. But for the most part, you just turn up and do the work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just like this morning, we had a freshman come in for developmental work as a coach. Like my hamstring doesn't got it today. Now this kid coming in, mechanics aren't great. He's not very, I don't want to say elastic or push or pull. I don't want to get into that conversation, but he's an excellent wide receiver, but he's not the freakiest wide receiver I've ever seen. Yep. But he's also had 2 hamstring pulls since he's been here because of improper loading. It's been hell. It was like hell on earth to get this kid back from the second one back into practice. He's starting to play well. The coaches are starting to ride him because they're trying to figure out if they can use him in the season or if he's going to redshirt. So what do we all know about working with team sport coaches? Like once they get a hot hand as a player, they're going to fucking ride that thing like a new toy, like with a toddler until it fucking breaks. So you know what? I got people looking over like this kid's fucking soft. He doesn't want to train, whatever. Okay, whatever that being said. But if this kid has an issue for a 3rd time in his first year here, we're going to lose this kid whether he doesn't trust us, he doesn't like us, whatever it is, he's not going to believe a goddamn thing we say or we do, and he's not going to have any buy in anything we try to do. So I'm going to throw this kid a bone and work with him and get him feeling good because we practice in 2 hours. And if he has a good practice, we just got to win. And at the end of the day, like maximal strength isn't a KPI for this kid. He's an outside wide receiver. He's able to run fast and catch balls, and he already does that well. Why would I fuck with that?
Yeah, man. So just to finish up, one of the things that struck me about you is how wide of a net you're willing to cast to gather information, how introspective you are in evaluating yourself. I'm curious as to what you think that your weaknesses are as a coach. What do you feel like is not holding you back, but if you could wave a magic wand and just turn it into a strength, what would it be?
Beyond like if I was to stay in the football world, beyond my appearance of looking like somebody's going to fix your computer when I come into the office. You, it's funny you say that because like every single day, like I feel like I'm not doing a good job, and like I feel like I'm fearing for my job. Uh, from an actual like skill development, I don't think I'm that good on the field. I think I'm serviceable. Uh,
How come?
I always feel like I'm missing something. Like I always see other coaches I know they're doing really well, and whether it's me, like
Who do you hold up to be? Give me a 10 out of 10 coach for the field.
uh, like
Garish.
like Garish is one like Garish is one that I've always kind of looked up to. And like he was actually one of the first people I ever talked to when I first got on the field. I remember the first time I talked to him, we talked on the phone for like 3 hours when I was still in school. So me and Garish have always been close. Obviously, like when it comes to like field development, like him, Chitty is somebody I look up to and I like really like envy. In terms of like the weight room and things like that, like other coaches I've worked for in the past. Now it's changed a little bit that I like really was enamored with how they coached and really thought they kind of had it all together. And there's a lot of people out there, but it's always kind of this like sense of FOMO almost, where I feel like like I'm missing something they don't have, and like there's always like kind of like this quest to kind of figure it out, put the puzzle together. To where like for me, like I've always thought like over the last like 2 years, like I've always thought like when it comes to like agility work or change direction, like I think my gaps in those are large when it comes to like VBT. Like I know it, I do it, but I'm not about to write out load velocity profiles for nobody. Like I could probably sit here and do it, but I'm not gonna like sit here and try to teach somebody like why they're wrong. There's all kinds of other things I could think of, but just like right off the top of my head, like I just don't ever feel like every time I go home, I just feel like there's like a laundry list of things I need to go home and work on to improve. And it's very, like you said, it's a wide net. Like there's never like one focal point. Like I just feel like I'm always missing something. And
It's a catch-22 because when you sit there and like that's it, I'm the finished article. That's when your career's over. Like it's time, you're doomed. But at the same time, comparison is the thief of joy. Like if you're always looking around and being like, well, I'm not as good as this guy, I'm not as good as this guy, I'm not as good as this guy. It's like that Naval thing of like when you envy, you have to envy everything. You have to envy every aspect of it. And I think one of the things that you have to accept, like when you work in team sports, by definition, you're a generalist. So to envy the track specialist or the strength specialist, you're wishing away your strength in the other areas that they're probably a 0 out of 10. That's one thing I would remind you of.
No, yeah, and I agree with that. It's funny, and it's funny you brought that up. There was a coach out on the West Coast that he wanted to hire him. He's like, "Well, I think you do really, you're like a Swiss Army knife when it comes to like working with people, and you do all these different things, and you have a lot of different experiences." Like, yeah, but I'll be honest with you, like I don't feel like I do any of those like really great. I just feel like I just kind of show up and I kind of fall into these roles and end up being like the best person on the staff for it, but I don't ever feel like I'm adequate enough. Like even with like the rehab stuff, for whatever reason, like I've turned like the rehab guy. Yeah, like when I got here, I think it's telling me like 18-9% of our roster was in return to play when I got here. Now we're down to, I think like down to like 4%. And I still feel like we're down to like 4% out of 128 kids. And I still feel like I've done a shit job. I still want to reevaluate how we handle hamstrings. I still want to reevaluate how we handle labrums, shoulder labrums. Like there's a million things I want to figure out why we've had 13 groin surgeries in the last 4 years within our roster. Like there's a million things and I don't have answers for.
Too much extracurriculars. Where can people find you online, bro? What's your Instagram, Zach?
It's coach _ Zach 32.
Perfect. Right. That is awesome.